Good morning and welcome to my weekly Love and Gratitude series. As always, I'm so grateful to share with you what I shared in French. So, yes, this is an audio because as I am moving through a time of beautiful transition, I still wanted to share what I have prepared for you. While video recording felt less aligned in this moment, I'm letting the voice lead, trusting the message will find you just as deeply, perhaps even more so, in this gentler form. So, today we are stepping into a profound exploration, one that calls us beyond the familiar into the deepness of our true transformation. So, this week's reflection is about transcending fear, moving beyond the illusions that hold you back. So, as we journey through awakening and embodiment, we begin to see that fear is not just an obstacle. It is an ego based concept or construct, an illusion woven by the ego to keep us bound to limitation. Remember, the ego thinks of itself almighty, and to keep this belief active, it must play, if I can say it this way, in a restricted playground. Because when we move beyond its limitations, we discover or remember that we are not what our ego made us believe. We are more than that. We discover who we truly are and our pure and unlimited essence and inner power. That makes the ego lose its own power over our beliefs, our emotions, and our thoughts. Perhaps you have noticed that when we wait for something, either a shift, a breakthrough, a manifestation of some sort, fear has a way of creeping into our mental space. It whispers doubts, paints illusions of failure, and it attracts us into cycles of overthinking everything. But today, since we all have a pretty good idea of what fear is, we will go beyond conventional teaching on fear and move deeper into understanding why it's not real, why it holds no power in the realm of consciousness, in the reality, and not the physical or ego reality, and why transcending fear is much more simpler than the ego would have us believe. And yes, easy does not mean that we will not need to practice and integrate what we are learning. So remember, fear is a false perception fabricated by the ego. So to begin, let's consider a core principle of A Course in Miracles, which states, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Remember, reality or physical or ego reality are not the same thing. Reality is in consciousness, in the unseen to our ego. And the reality we see in our everyday life is the ego-based one, or the physical one, which I call ego reality because it's easier. And this is a reflection of what we believe. It's the result or the expression of what we believe. So not only this statement dismantles fear entirely, but it makes it clear that fear belongs to the unreal because it is ego-based, conditional, and rooted in finite perception. And when we are fearful, we are casting out the perfect love that we are and that we were created from. The ego is a part of our physical life. It's part of us in the physical life and can only see the results. So it sees the finite part and it cannot see the non-visible. So it easily mistakes the result and everything that is physical for the entirety of what is, because it cannot see what it cannot see. It cannot grasp the infinite nature of consciousness, where everything is already unfolding in divine perfection and also in divine timing. We talked about that last week. It's a little like I shared the other time, it cannot see what is happening unless it is visible. So, for example, it cannot see what is happening to the seed in the soil. It can only see once the plant is visible. And even more, it cannot understand how it grows, just that it does. And if it is something that is needed for survival or life, it will be anxious about the growth or afraid that something might happen. So, just to show you, Think of a moment in your past when you were deeply afraid of something, either a decision, an outcome, a loss you felt you were experiencing, but everything worked out well and maybe even better than you could have imagined. Think of one time. Now, looking back at that time, can you see how much of that fear was just an illusion? Was it holding true power? No, except the power you gave it at that time. When we recognize fear for what it is, a false projection of the ego wanting to stay in control of the old ways or beliefs, when we become aware of this, we begin to disarm it. It loses its power in our mental space. So let's look at the spiritual root of fear, so the ego's inability to create. I think one of my favorite sayings, because I often refer to this one to explain, is in the Gospel of Thomas. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. This teaching is also a powerful insight into the nature of fear. So fear arises when we do not trust what is already within us, our essence, when we ignore the still voice of inner wisdom and instead we allow the ego to dictate our perception. The energy of fear distorts what we see and think. So the ego cannot create. It can only manipulate what's finite and distort what it sees. And yes, the ego thrives on fear because fear keeps us from stepping into the power of our true being, of our divine, limitless essence. Think about it. So, how do we move beyond it? How do we transcend fear as a lived experience? The answer is not found in resisting fear, because when we resist something, it means we believe it. We believe it's real. Otherwise, we would not even have anything to resist against. But it's in seeing through it, or what I call lifting up an ego veil. So fear dissolves when we no longer mistake it for reality, when we understand that it's an illusion, a negative perception from the ego. And when there is no more fear, we can see a little more light. So when we choose the infinite over the finite, there is a shift in power. And yes, this is work in progress for all of us. First, we must learn and become aware of it, and then practice its integration. Neville Goddard in Out of This World reminds us that man moves in a world that is nothing more or less than his consciousness objectified. So it's just another way of saying this again. It means that fear is never out there in the world. It is always a projection of an inner state. The moment we shift in our consciousness, so the moment we change the blueprint in consciousness, the outer world reorganizes accordingly. We create in reality, in the unseen, and not in the ego-based reality. Whether we know that we do it or not, we still do it. It's all about the beliefs. This is why when we don't understand why something is happening, it is not by going back in time to see what we taught or what we did to attract this present moment as it is, but it's in, yes, going back in our mind, but to see which inner state we were into then. So our beliefs generating emotions and thoughts, which allowed the now to be what it is. So we don't go back in time to see what we did right or wrong. We go back in time, if we do, of course, to see which inner state we were then, to better understand what we created and how to course correct. But most of the time, when we consciously do this, for example, in meditation, we might try to go to that place with our ego-based mind, wanting to know and analyze what were we thinking. So have you ever noticed how the moment you truly surrender, truly let go, the thing you feared no longer has hold over you? This is because your energy shifted from ego-based perception to expansion, so higher consciousness. What happened is that you let go of a belief and you replaced it with a new one without maybe realizing that you were doing that. So you surrendered to your old belief and allowed the place for a new one to exist. That's what's happening when we surrender. We allow a new belief to take place, to replace the old data. So the best way to begin this shift is through awareness. To change something, we must be aware of it first. When fear arises, instead of engaging with it and feeding it, stop feeding it and ask yourself, is this coming from the infinite truth of my being? Or is this a finite illusion of my conditioned mind, my ego-based mind? Fear is the opposite of love. See where the energy is coming from. And the more we do this, the more we build trust in our deeper awareness, well, the more fear begins to dissolve effortlessly because we don't feed it anymore. We know better. So to move beyond resistance is actually transcending through allowing. In Ask and It Is Given, we can read that when you no longer split your flow of energy with contradictory thoughts, your power of creation becomes greater. I don't know if you saw that episode, but I made one on the two thought systems. So the one from the ego and the one from the higher self. And it's easy to comprehend that fear is part of the ego one, and unconditional love is part of the higher self one. So conditional love is part of the ego-based one also. And this statement we just saw is key. Fear is an opposing thought. It is a thought that says, I'm not safe. I'm not enough. I'm not guided. I'm alone and I must take control. We all know that. But the truth is, you are always safe, always enough, always guided, never alone. Our task is to remember this and believe it. It's not always easy to believe that because life happens and we find ourselves resisting what is most often than not. So fear gains momentum. The path beyond fear is the path of allowance, which is what happens when we surrender. We stop wanting to be in control. It's not about forcing, not fighting, but allowing the path to be seen for what it is, without any ego-based values. And when we do this, we are allowing the path of fear to dissolve. So ask yourself today and take the time to journal on this. Where in my life am I resisting something? What false belief am I still clinging to that keeps that fear alive? What am I afraid that will happen if I let go of that belief? Be honest with yourself and allow your higher self to inspire you with a different answer that will not be from your ego. When we bring these unconscious patterns into the light, already they lose their power. So transcending fear is not about fighting it. It's about seeing through it. It is about recognizing that fear belongs to the ego. And the ego is not who you are. It's like your GPS, your neutral machine, your neutral instrument allowing you to move and live through the physical life. So as you move through life, especially in moments of waiting and uncertainty, remember this. The consciousness within you does not lack. It is not afraid. It is pure divine love. And it simply is. It is what it is, with no ego-based values. So this week, I invite you to see fear from what it is. Nothing more than an echo of an old paradigm that no longer serves you. It's time to move beyond. And it might shake you because it is not aligned with your core essence. So let it pass like a shadow in the light of your awareness. Trust in the unfolding of your divine path. So thank you for joining me in this week's reflection, and I hope you enjoy my Love and Gratitude series as much as I do. Feel free to like, share, and I do encourage you to share it with your friends, your audience, your family. We never know who needs to hear this. And remember, as always, to breathe in, to let go of all your ego-based thoughts and vision, to see from your soul, and to love out. See you next week. If this reflection resonated with you and you feel called to continue your inner journey, I invite you to explore the e-guides I have created to support your path. And if this reflection has touched your heart, donations are always welcome as a thank you of gratitude. You will find all the links in the description. No matter how you choose to walk alongside this work, know that your presence and openness are always deeply appreciated.